Hello and welcome to this special edition of the program. I'm Conor Duffy, here on the banks of the Macquarie River, part of the Murray-Darling catchment system. Well, it's been a year in the waiting, but the draft plan for the Murray-Darling Basin is finally here. Farmers and conservationists have been waiting nervously for the past 12 months, and as expected, neither side is happy with the final result. Darling Farms is a haven for hungry native birds, as well as the cash crops that prop up the local economy. It's the biggest operation in town, but even here the life-giving water channels are drying up, with water entitlements slashed.
Well, it's been a massive problem for the industry here at Burke and for the community.
Will you ever recover?
No, we won't recover. We've had 67% of the all water licences in this area have been cut.
And now, as governments try to save an ailing river system, Ian Cole says anxiety is rising again. Man-made lakes like these could be at risk.
The number of people coming in with prescriptions for antidepressive and anti-anxiety drugs tends to rise when these events are taking place.
Burke's always relied on the Darling River, but drought and water cuts have seen a quarter of its people leave. Charles Moore runs Darling Irrigation, which supplies farmers, and like many others, he fears the future of the business lies with the basin plan.
We are very concerned that if the basin cuts go through, we will probably have to reassess in the very near future.
And that could mean people losing their jobs?
Yes, most definitely.
If Burke does face further water cuts, locals want more money for jobs in other areas.
If governments want to do radical industry restructuring, yeah, that's their call, but they should look at some sort of offsetting of that to the wider community that are affected.
We're here on the Macquarie Marshes in the Murray-Darling Basin, speaking with the floodplain graziers who produce beef cattle. They say they feel like they're the forgotten people in this debate. Irrigators have sent their message out loud and clear that they believe the plan is going to do their industry enormous harm. But the floodplain graziers here are very excited about the extra water being returned to the river system. They say it can allow them to increase production and lead to a healthy river. There's plenty of water in the marshes, enough for thousands of water birds, and there's feed for cattle too. Cattle grazier Gary Hall loves this country.
You'll have to push them down that way a bit, Tom.
It's misty today, but it can be harsh and unforgiving.
We'd had 8 or 9 really bad years, and it had been a struggle, and to see the marshes deteriorate so much, it was very disheartening.
Gary Hall wants the land wet and lush more often, and he sees the basin plan as a great opportunity.
The floodplain graziers and the marsh landholders are often the forgotten people in the debate.
It is bringing it back to an equilibrium. It is returning water back into the system that was there pre-1960s.
Neighbour Adam Coleman and his son Lachlan farm just down the road. Adam Coleman says too much water has been taken from the basin by irrigators.
It has hurt the bottom line and made it very difficult for a couple that is only just starting out with a young family.
The local landholders around the marshes see this as a great opportunity to return things to some type of normality.
Well, there's been plenty of rain this year, and today is no exception. Queensland's an area that's been especially hard hit, with flooding and other damaging weather events leading to concerns about marine creatures. Penny Timms reports from Townsville.
It's a break for freedom 6 months in the making. Environment Minister Vicky hopes many more can have a similar fate. She's released details of 32 programs to help cane farmers and cattle graziers in North Queensland boost farm practices. The projects are designed to reduce farm runoff and to improve the water quality of the Great Barrier Reef.
It's very important that we make sure that we protect what happens on land and that will protect what happens in the sea.
$7.6 million will be spent over the next 3 years.
The $7.6 million of funding will provide farmers with tools to be able to help calculate their nutrient load, better maps and images to help plan their farming and grazing, and also some research studies that really back up the work that we do on land.
The funding is part of the state government's existing $50 million protection package.
The Great Barrier Reef Marine Park is one of the most biologically diverse ecosystems on the planet, so it's vitally important to local animals.
The government wants to give all marine creatures a better chance of survival.
What we do know is there is a clear link between water quality and seagrass that the turtles eat. We heard some good news this morning that we believe there's some really healthy seagrass at Picnic Bay at the moment, so hopefully the turtles that have been released today will be heading across the bay and having a feed shortly.
It's something this reptile is relying on.
And problems for marine life appear to be spreading further south. Skin problems on sharks in central Queensland have now been detected further along the coast. Sharks with a red rash were caught in the Fitzroy River near Rockhampton and the Coleman River near Bundaberg last week. A parasite was found on them. Previously, the skin problems had only been detected on sharks in the Gladstone area. The minister says it's a different parasite to the one that's been found on Barramundi around Gladstone. On the Gold Coast, there's a fight to protect beachfront land. Letitia Spit is popular with off-road enthusiasts, but it's claimed four-wheel drives are damaging dunes and migratory birds. Tom Forbes reports from the Gold Coast.
Bush bashing is a popular pastime for many four-wheel drive owners, and Letitia Spit, just south of Tweed Heads, is a popular off-road haunt.
I think a lot of them are coming from Queensland, but I can't blame the whole lot onto the Queenslanders. There are a lot of local four-wheel drivers that use the area too.
If they want bush, this is where they have to come, and when they come they don't seem to realise how precious it is. They think it's just a playground.
Indigenous leader Des Williams says the land is culturally significant and environmentally sensitive, with migratory birds using the area to rest and breed. The Aboriginal Land Council has built fences, dug trenches and laid rocks across entries, but the four-wheel drives keep coming.
Enjoy it and take it as it is, not come in here to destroy it.
People can drive on the beach if they have a permit.
There are a number of protective measures, both from the federal and state government and from council, but they're only as strong as the ability to enforce compliance.
Last December, a local resident watched a green turtle haul itself up the beach and lay a clutch of eggs right here. The next day they returned and found tyre tracks over the top of the nest. Community leaders say Letitia Spit is there to be used and not abused.
The Go Local mantra has reached the power industry. Renewable energy advocates are increasingly talking about communities generating their own sources of power. And as Kirsten Vaness reports, one group in the Yarra Ranges is trying to resurrect an old hydroelectric scheme.
On such a pristine golf course, this old powerhouse is something most would overlook. But for Luke Whiteside, it generated one powerful idea.
The initial inspiration for me was a game of golf and watching the creek go past and just going, there's a resource here that we could be using better.
It's believed the turbine was made in 1935 and local historians say it once powered Warburton. This group of volunteers think it can be restored to generate a small percentage of the town's power and return profits to the community.
We'll be feeding that electricity back into the grid for sale there and it'll be used by the whole local community.
A community bank is financing the project, which still needs approval from water and council authorities. But its first task is getting the turbine out.
We've cut the original generator from the turbine, and we're going to just take it apart piece by piece.
If the group is successful with its plan, the turbine will be moved here, which is about 400 metres away from the original site and much closer to the creek.
The Warburton Microhydro is one of many community projects being discussed at a conference this week. Other ideas include a cooperative which wants to power an entire council building with solar energy.
There's a lot of issues to go through with that, but we're very keen on the concept and we're looking to support that group however we can.
Groups are also becoming increasingly mindful of any opposition their plans may face.
We've seen in the history of renewable energy technologies and new technologies, especially in country areas, dividing communities. That's not what we want to do.
So far, the Warburton Group says it hasn't received any complaints, as this rusty turbine looks set to spin in another century.
The Northern Territory's most powerful Indigenous body is calling for a moratorium on fracking, using hydraulic fracturing to extract oil and gas from deep underground. The Northern Territory government says any approvals won't go ahead unless they meet strict environmental guidelines. Jane Barden reports.
The Northern Territory's Barkly, MacArthur Basin and Alice Springs regions hold rich deposits of shale oil gas. Green groups say companies exploring them shouldn't be allowed to mine without more scientific research.
There are around 50 exploration licences already issued across the Territory, covering 70% of the landmass. And on the Barkly tableland itself, there could be 8,000-9,000 wells.
To mine the gas, companies would use hydraulic fracturing, called fracking.
It's high-pressure water and chemicals and sand breaking apart the rocks to let the gas flow to the surface.
Indigenous landowners want fracking plans halted.
There needs to be a moratorium, there needs to be a lot more science done, particularly in regards to water, the materials or minerals in which they use to drill.
Concerns raised overseas and interstate about coal seam gas mining have fuelled Territory worries.
Contamination of water resources, chemicals getting into drinking water, disruption of the landscape through large-scale exploration activities.
The Territory government says it's aware there are environmental concerns about fracking and all applications will be rigorously assessed.
I am advised, though, that New South Wales and Queensland are quite a different geological scenario to the Barkly, where our water table is sitting around about 200 metres below the surface, where these oil and gas supplies being explored are sitting around 2,000 metres below the surface.
But the Territory Resources Department says a full environmental impact statement assessment may not be required for every fracking approval, depending on the chemicals used, depth and length of the well.
Goodbye. That's all from the Environment Quarter here in the Murray-Darling Basin. You can search for me on Twitter, just look for Conor Duffy 730, and I'll see you next time.